Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to all participants and audience for the KL conference conference on Afghanistan, the emergence of a nation. Now we will continue our session to session number 4, which will conducted at this hour. So from Kabul to Panjshir, the Taliban has almost confirmed their governance and authority in Afghanistan. As the world started to fear and reminisce about the previous Taliban's appearance, the question on how will the Taliban lead the country in the new age has emerged. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, if questions like this intrigue you, then our next session will bring the topic Understanding a New Reality in Afghanistan, will bring you to the edge of your seat. Let us introduce you our two panelists for this evening session. The first panel will be the chairman of Humanitarian Assistance Society, Dr. Harun Khatibi. The second panel will be Ms. Fauzia Kufi, the first woman deputy speaker of Parliament in Afghanistan. With our moderator for this session, the CEO of Allied Coordinating Committee on Islamic NGO Affin, IR Jamaluddin Shamsuddin. He is a trained elect engineer with an MBA and has been an active full-time civil society activist for the past 16 years after 20 years of technical and corporate experience. Interestingly, Ayah Jamal organized a mission to the Afghan refugee camps in Peshawar on September 1987 to highlight the Afghan plight, which was under the Soviet occupation at that time. But before we begin our session for this evening, I would like to announce today is 26 September 2021. On this occasion, we would like to wish happy birthday to our moderator for this evening, to Mr. Jamaluddin. We wish you the best on your birthday and everything good in the year ahead, inshallah.
Amin, amin. Jazakallah khair.
With that, please welcome Mr. Jamaluddin Shamsuddin for the moderators for this evening session. Please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I think I'm not going to reveal my age, Dr. Harun. So, very appreciative for the dua. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for allowing me to moderate this session 4. Firstly, greetings to the Foreign Minister, Dato' Saifuddin Abdullah, Dato' Ahmad Azam, the Chairman of Global Peace Malaysia, and also the former President of ABIM and now the President of WADA, Brother Muhammad Faisal, the current President of ABIM, Brother Fahmi Shamsuddin, the global CEO of Global Peace Malaysia, the organizers of today's event. We are delighted to have two distinguished panels members, Dr. Harun Khatibi. Dr. Harun Khatibi is a chairman of Humanitarian Assistance Society, born in Kabul in 1961, and he studied BA in Da'wah, and then you had Masters in Islamic Studies and PhD, interestingly, in International Islamic University, Dr. Harun, in culture da'wah, and besides being a lecturer, university lecturer, he has also worked extensively in the CSOs, and currently is the council member of the International Union of Muslim Scholars, Union of the NGOs in Islamic World, and also member of the KL Forum on Thoughts and Civilization. The other speaker, I think we are waiting for her to come in, is Madam Fauzia Kufi. Madam Fauzia Kufi is the first women deputy speaker of parliament in Afghanistan, and member of the peace negotiation team in Qatar. She is an Afghan politician, a women's rights activist, originally from the Badakhshan province. And Kufi was recently a member of the Afghan delegation negotiating peace with Taliban in Doha, Qatar. She is an ex-member of parliament in Kabul and was vice president of the National Assembly. Alhamdulillah, we observe, throughout the day, the morning sessions by the distinguished presenters. We're discussing about the geopolitics, discussing about cautious optimism of the future of Afghanistan. They were also talking about peace and reconciliation and reintegration of Afghanistan, and also the hope of a future Afghanistan that is Afghan-led and is Afghan-controlled. And this evening, we are focusing on understanding the new reality in Afghanistan, and the session seeks to learn and understand the new reality of the ground in Afghanistan today from the perspective of the civil society organizations, the humanitarian groups, particularly related to the issues of food security, basic amenities, education, women's rights, general security, and reconstruction of the country. The economy has also got to be reinvigorated in line to create jobs and business opportunities. The agriculture and natural resources sectors should also be attended to. This is a huge challenge, and we have just started. But the challenge is also, as stated by, I think, one of the members earlier, that there are 1.5 million orphans, 4 million internally displaced people in Afghanistan. And there's food shortages, and we are facing a long and cold winter. So with that in mind, I think, Dr. Harun, can you kindly share with us your understanding of this new reality in Afghanistan from the perspective of the civil society organizations and humanitarian groups in Afghanistan? Please, the screen is yours, Dr. Harun. You have to unmute here.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Honorable Foreign Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Saifuddin Abdullah, Chairman and the President of ABIM, Dr. Muhammad Faisal Abdul Aziz, and Chairman of Global Peace Mission, Dr. Ahmad Azam Abdul Rahim, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, respected participants and listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very honored to be part of such a important conference on Afghanistan, which is held in a very crucial time where Afghanistan is entering a new phase, a change in regime, which is it was very quick and rapid change. We did not expect it so soon to be happened. If I have to say something about the present situation of Afghanistan, I would like to start with a congratulation to the Muslim Ummah that the new changes in Afghanistan, new development in Afghanistan, that came after a defeat of Crusade War, which was launched against Afghanistan 20 years ago. This Crusade War was declared by Mr. Bush the Jr. At the time when they blamed Afghanistan for being behind the 9/11 in 9/11 in New York. 9/11 event in New York. This was a crusade war with the whole with the meanings of the world, because Americans and NATO, they invaded my country, Afghanistan, in two fronts. The first one was a military front. American forces, with the help of NATO forces and the other allies, they attacked Afghanistan, and they used all the most sophisticated weapons to destroy this country. And the other front was cultural invasion of Afghanistan. But Alhamdulillah, today we are witnessing that the defeat of that crusade war, and after 20 years of occupation led by US and NATO, in which all types of atrocities, including bombing civilian programs like weddings, bombing schools, hospitals, madaris, masajid, and home searching, hospitals, and they used the mother bomb, which was not used before this in any place of the world. So this tells us how cruel and how great occupation was this against Afghanistan. But Alhamdulillah, today we are celebrating that defeat of occupation, and eventually Afghanistan is free from so-called civilized murderers and snipers. Alhamdulillah. It was really an onslaught, not on in the name of war on terror. It was an onslaught on the Islam itself, and they used whatever they had in their powers in order to destabilize Afghanistan and de-Islamize my country. I noticed when I was in Kabul in 2001, and after that things we noticed how huge was this attack on Afghanistan. In a country, you can imagine, in a country where the people, they suffered many years of war. Before that, the destroyed country, Western powers, they brought for us over 72 TV stations, which was meant to de-Islamize Afghanistan through their Western culture and through the Western invasion. But Alhamdulillah, today that war is defeated, and I congratulate the Muslim Ummah, and I congratulate at the same time Afghan nation. I would like to talk, talk about three things. At least the first, the homeland. Afghanistan, as you know, is a very strategic homeland in the heart of Asia. As Allama Iqbal Lahori, he put it, he says, the Asia is a body of water and mud. So it is a clay, body of the clay. In that body, Afghanistan is the heart of this body. If Afghanistan is stable, the whole Asia would be stable. If Afghanistan is unstable, then the whole Asia would be unstable. So this is proves it gives Afghanistan a very strategic situation. We are surrounded by China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Pakistan. And Afghanistan is it had the old Silk Route, which was going from China through Afghanistan and joined China and these countries with Europe. And still it has that potential, Afghanistan. So this was is very important to any superpower throughout the history. And at this time, it was very important to the America because Afghanistan is neighbor to China and next to the Central Asian countries, which are extended to Russia, and on the other hand, Iran and Pakistan, a nuclear power Islamic country. So this situation, it gives Afghanistan very importance. And on the economical side, Afghanistan is a virgin country. It is with its untouched resources. The resources of the Afghanistan, which belongs to the Afghan people, includes minerals of very precious types of minerals, uranium of Helmand, lithium of Ghazni, talc, copper of Ainak in Logar, and gold, lal of Badakhshan, emerald of Panjshir, and besides gas and petroleum and all the other resources which are worth of trillions. They say it is worth $3 trillion, but it is more than that what is mentioned. So this gives Afghanistan also a very important place for the important strategic place for the superpowers. Beautiful sceneries and lovely forces and weather of Afghanistan is makes from Afghanistan an attraction to the tourism. The other things, the rulers of Afghanistan, since Afghanistan was established in the name of Afghanistan, this was experienced different type of regimes, from emirates to kingdom and to republic regime and to the communist regime, and then Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and again emirates. But all these regimes that came and go, but Afghanistan is still there, and the performance of different regimes is something which would make different. And at this time, the new regime, which they called themselves Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is in power, and the people of Afghan people and the international community, they are waiting to see the fulfillment of the promises which were done by Taliban before taking over Afghanistan. And recent developments in Afghanistan, which was started by Doha Agreement between Taliban and US, and the failure which they called themselves Islamic Emirate of Ashraf Ghani was started by Doha Agreement between Taliban and the US of Taliban, and the collapse of the institutions of military and security institutions as well. Then a power vacuum for a while, and now the government is there in place. And thus Taliban and the new Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan will fulfill their promises to the nation and to the world. This is the coming days, inshallah. It will tell us that. Yes, I would like to say that Afghanistan is not only Kabul, and the people of Afghanistan is not only those who live in the cities. Majority of Afghanistan, they live in the rural areas, and to judge Afghanistan by a small group of people, that is not a good thing to do. The people of Afghanistan includes different tribes: Pashtun, Tajik, Uzbek, Turkmen, Hazara, and Pashai, and other small groups. So Afghanistan, with all these people, it makes like a rainbow nation of Afghanistan. Regarding Taliban, there is a question. It bothers everybody that Taliban of today is Taliban of today different from Taliban of yesterday or 2001. I would like to say that, of course, there is a change in the mentality of a group of Taliban. Taliban are consisted of three groups at least. One is the political office of Taliban, or the group of Doha, which are more open-minded towards the world, towards others, and that is represented by Mullah Abdul Ghani brother. And this group, it has gotten among themselves educated people, besides the religious education. They have come out of the universities, and they know how to deal with the world, and they know they want to, they promised an inclusive government of Afghanistan. Although the terminology of inclusive or these things are different, understood by Taliban differently, they call their new government an inclusive government, but they mean, okay, there is 1 or 2% from Taliban who is Tajik, one is Tajik and one is Uzbek. But by the word inclusive doesn't mean only this, to put 1 or 2 Tajik from your own party and say this is inclusive government. So we hope that inclusive, it be that the entire people of Afghanistan, they must see their representative in the government, not from only from Taliban group, but from the other groups in Afghanistan. So the terminology also sometimes is understood different. Like the Taliban, when they came to Afghanistan this time, they said they would discuss with the people regarding the type of government, but they were discussing among themselves within the Taliban group. So the second group of Taliban is those leaders, Taliban, who belongs to the Kuwaiti Shura, which was a consultative body of Taliban in Pakistan and Kuwait. They are different from the things. They more stick to their values, which they had it in the previous era of Taliban. I'm sorry. So this is the second group.
Harun.
They are more hardliner than the first group. And the third group are those mujahideen and those people who never left Afghanistan, and they fought against occupation troops in Afghanistan, and they fought for the Emirates for the change which was brought in Afghanistan, and they more extremist than the other groups. In fact, these groups sometimes they feel like that Afghanistan, we gained Afghanistan. Afghanistan is about a bounty. Therefore, nobody else has the right to share us with them. And when they speak of the inclusion of others, they don't mean that inclusion of other parties or other people of Afghanistan in the decision-making level. Even the Taliban group or the Haq group also, when they speak of the inclusion, they would employ other people, groups in Afghanistan in their governments. They don't say they will include them in the decision-making level of Afghanistan. And the third group, which I mentioned, they are sometimes they go to that extent that they would not accept any other Muslim also in Afghanistan except their own Taliban group. This is why recently we noticed the killing of some of the ulama, also those who were not part of the Hanafi sect of things. For example, Mullah Ubaidullah Mutawakkil was one of those ulama. He was assassinated in Kabul. And yesterday, the day before yesterday, they killed another alim, which his name was Mullah Luqman in Nangarhar. So this is the three different categories of Taliban. More than these things, the more dangerous part is that when the prisons, they were open for all, and many of the criminals also, they came out, just they put a turban and they use the name of Taliban, and they entering the houses of people and they committing, which would lead to the defaming the name of Emirates of Taliban. So this is the second part, and my last point is about the people of Afghanistan, and their main concern is that the first concern of Afghan people is the security. And Alhamdulillah, now the security is much better than the time of previous government of Ashraf Ghani. At least we don't have that much of killing of 200, 300 Afghan. They lost their life during Ashraf Ghani, during the American occupation. Now, Alhamdulillah, the security is better than that time, but still, this is the concern of Afghan people. The second concern is the economy. Economy, due to the foreign interference in the affairs of Afghanistan, like the assets of Afghan people, they are frozen, and American banks, about $9 billion there and $1.7 billion in European countries. This led to a very low economy at this time, and that is the concern of people. The people, their concern is to have a plate of food on their table. And that is at this time difficult for the people, which would be a duty of other Muslims and the international community to bring relief to Afghanistan. And the third concern of the people is their freedom. The freedom is a third concern of Afghan people. Majority, in fact, Afghans will not tolerate occupation or their freedom to be touched. This is something. If someone doesn't believe me, they must study the history of Afghanistan. All the occupiers, all the invaders, when they come to Afghanistan, eventually they were defeated. This is why Afghanistan is called the graveyard of the invaders. The fourth concern is the dignity of people. The people, they would not give up with their dignity. And that is the concern of people. They, at this time in the streets of Kabul, the people, they are uncertain about their future. What would happen? What my wife should be because slashed with in the street because Taliban, the previous era of Taliban, it was a failure government at that time, and that the Afghan people at this time they compare today's time with the previous time of Taliban. And of course, the other concern, which is very common in Afghanistan, education. The people, they are concerned about the education of their children, male and female. Although the boys' schools, till standard 6 is opened recently, but the people they are concerned about their children's education at university level and at others. Although I believe that Taliban, they need some time to open universities. But for the schools which are already separated, it's not a co-education at the Afghan schools at all. The Afghan schools for the children that should be open for males and females. What is the international community's duties and our duties towards Afghanistan? I have just 2-3 points here. One is to advise and support an inclusive government of all Afghan. And the second thing is the emergency relief to be sent to the people of Afghanistan. And the third point I make is help to release Afghan assets frozen by Americans and European countries. Those who wants to use it as a cord of to pressurize the new government. And this would bring more job to Afghanistan, and the people, they would be certain about their future. And I'm very optimistic about the future of Afghanistan if the foreign interference is stopped. If the Muslims and they would stand with, if they stand with the new government, advising them with goods and supporting them in what is good and preventing them from what is not good. Thank you very much. My voice is giving up. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Dr. Harun Katibi. Your analysis was quite wide, quite detailed. Thank you very much. I think we understood it very clearly. And your analysis of the different groups in Taliban, those who are in Qatar overseas, those in Pakistan and inside Afghanistan, has given us some insight, I think, to some of us to better understand the Taliban. But now I would like to move to the question. We are waiting also for Madam Fatima Kufi. She has not come in yet. But in the meantime, I would like to ask you, Dr. Harun, the challenge, the humanitarian challenge is so significant in Pakistan. There's 1.5 million orphans, 4 million internally displaced Afghanis. And in fact, this morning, the Honorable Minister mentioned about the situation, the macroeconomic situation of Afghanistan, where the trade deficit is 30% of the GDP, and 80% of the budget comes from foreign aid. So how do you, how is this going to be resolved? Do you have any picture on how we're going to resolve this severe deficit, and how is this going to affect the urgent humanitarian effort in Afghanistan? Please. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Harun? I think, Dr. Harun, you are muted. Can you hear me?
It was an important question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Can you speak louder? Yeah? A little bit louder.
Okay.
Yeah. Raise the volume.
There is an important question, Brother Jamaluddin. The sufferings of Afghan people, or the humanitarian sufferings in Afghanistan, is much higher than what we imagine. Still, from the Soviet Union invasion time, still we have got the refugees from that time in Pakistan and Iran and some other countries in Europe and other countries. Those people are still suffering. The rehabilitation of refugees is one of the important point to think about. As you mentioned, 1.5 million of orphans and about over 1 million or so widows, and in Afghanistan, in the recent IDPs, about 500,000 IDPs, which were internally displaced people, they came to Kabul and the other cities of Afghanistan. I'm sorry. So that is very great, is alarming actually. And when we think that after 1 and 2 already in Kabul, your team, the team of Global Mission, they are in Kabul, they can tell you how the weather is cold at this time. Now, for the IDPs, those who don't have a shelter and they live in the outside, their blanket is the sky and their bed is the ground. So for them it's very, very difficult. And every day the weather gets more severe. So we have to be prepared from now for a winter warm project for these people, and plus the IDPs from the previous war still we have got it in Afghanistan. And with the very down economy, we expect more more people to be affected with these sufferings.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Harun. I think we have now your panelist partner, Madam Fauzia Ufi. Madam Fauzia, are you here?
Yes, good morning. I'm here. Can you hear me? Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, madam. You can hear you.
You want me to speak? Am I supposed to speak now? Because I just joined.
Yes, please. I think it's your turn. Yeah, moderator is yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to the Malaysian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I missed His Excellency the Minister's speech, but I'm very glad that now more and more Muslim countries are getting involved in the situation in Afghanistan. We definitely need more voices and solidarity from the Muslim world, from the Muslim nations. What's happening these days in Afghanistan is a matter of concern not only for the citizens of those countries, of that country, but I guess also for the Muslim world. Because in many occasions, what happens there is in contradiction with our faith, with the religion that we believe in and we have sacrificed so much for. So therefore, we all have a moral responsibility to have solidarity with the people of Afghanistan and with that country. You all know that the peace negotiations with Taliban started a year ago or more than a year ago, with the hope that through negotiations we will reach to a political settlement that is agreed upon by not only people of Afghanistan but by regional countries and international community. However, between the regional the peace process, there were some misdeeds. So many things went wrong that, as a result, we now see that the outcome of the peace talks is not what we had expected. Mainly, the international factors to where we are now is basically when the Taliban were waiting for Americans to have the elections. When the elections were held, they were waiting to have the policy of the U.S. towards Afghanistan. And we know that the policy finally was announced in April, which was withdrawal in September, unconditional withdrawal in September. Of course, there were other internal factors as well, including a weak government, corruption, lack of a clear vision on what the power sharing or the political settlement might look like. Lack of political consensus among politicians in Afghanistan as well. So all of these internal and external factors contributed to a situation where institutions collapse as war and military strategy was preferred as opposed to peace and negotiation. And we saw that institutions collapse, provinces collapse after the other. But the expectation was not to see Kabul collapse so rapidly. We know that on the 15th of August, Taliban entered Kabul militarily. the previous president fled the country, leaving a vacuum of power, and therefore Taliban entered. They entered with no violence because there was no institution, nobody to basically face them or resist them. However, there was an atmosphere of uncertainty, and people were frightened for the return of the past that I'm very much familiar, and many thousands and millions of Afghans were familiar with. The past that actually deprived us from our basic human and Islamic rights. Women and girls were banned from going to school or any public appearance. We see that the people were frightened that the same past might be repeated, and therefore big chunks of people actually flee to the airport to escape Afghanistan. And the evacuation is now finished, but I know that a lot of Afghans are taking extremely dangerous routes to go to the neighboring countries. The neighboring countries have already shouldered Afghanistan during these conflicts. I think it's not fair to leave them alone, and therefore my hope is that the Muslim nations will step in to support those people who are at risk, but above all, to make themselves relevant with what's happening in Afghanistan. Because my experience of living under Taliban from 1996 until 2001, when they first came, I was a medical student personally. They issued decree that women cannot go to school or work until further notice. And that temporary measure actually became then a permanent measure. So the fear most of the people in Afghanistan has is few. Firstly, the government they have established is not an inclusive government. Their definition of inclusion is inclusion among different Taliban fractions, not among different political, ethnic, and religious minorities in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a very diverse country. There are more than 29 languages and ethnic groups and religious minorities, including Shia and even Hindus and Sikhs, although very, very minority. Of course, majority are Sunni Muslims, but the stability of the country will depend on inclusion of the government and everybody being a meaningful part of the government, not only as an employee to work for Taliban, but decide together. And therefore, and then the second challenge is the situation of human rights and women's rights in particular. We know that the Taliban announced girls up to grade 6, which is 12 years of old or above, a little bit, to go to school because they think that the secondary and high school the grade should be segregated and with female teachers only. And the concern is that we already have segregated classes. The concern is that this temporary announcement might become another, permanent. And they have announced women to stay home and not work because, according to their excuse or definition, they want to make the environment safe for the woman. So I think as a Muslim woman and as a believer of a religion that started with Iqra, means read, I cannot see a government that makes, its policy against discriminatory to its population. Other Muslim countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, the same country that I'm staying now, Qatar, countries in the region, Pakistan, Iran, they all have a role to play. The OIC, they all have a role to play in raising their voice, because I do not want my religion to be elaborated in a way that it's actually against the principles that it stands for, the principles of education, the principles of freedom, the principle of liberation. So what Taliban is doing actually is worrisome, and therefore there is a lot of concern about a possible civil war, a scenario that we have to avoid, because the country yet again cannot have the burden of another civil war. We have already paid the highest price, not only in terms of losing lives. Yes, millions of people lost lives, but also opportunity. Afghanistan is such a beautiful country full of natural resources that could become a potential economic and regional connectivity. But because of what's happening in Afghanistan, because of what's continuously happening, we know that we have not been able to use our economic resources to the potential that we should. So therefore, my plea to to the Malaysian government, to the neighboring countries, is to step in to make Taliban accountable for what they do in terms of not including everyone. Remember, the Taliban did not take over Kabul militarily, and the Taliban did not face enormous confrontation militarily because people were not happy with the previous government. So the Taliban should know that if they continue to exclude them and continue to pursue the policy of exclusion, that means they're welcoming actually another civil war, which is not in the interest of anyone. I stop here, and I once again thank the Malaysian Foreign Minister, the Malaysian government, and everyone who was part of the organization of this conference. Thank you.
Madam Fauzia, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here in our conference. And in fact, we have already introduced you at the start of the session. So I think most of the members have heard that. Madam Fauzia Kufi, the first woman Deputy Speaker of Parliament in Afghanistan and a member of the peace negotiation team in Qatar. If I may ask you, Madam, a question again. Would you agree that you are still apprehensive of the present leadership of Afghanistan with regards to the right of women, access to education, and women participation in public life? When we have to acknowledge there's some, you have to unmute, yeah? We have to acknowledge there's highly positive signs of engagement by the government, present government, with the rest of the world to highlight the new narrative of inclusiveness, peaceful coexistence, and moderation. What is your view, Madam Fauzia? Silakan. Yeah.
Well, the Taliban has announced a caretaker government, which means there is a chance and a possibility for engagement for some of those clear benchmarks to be achieved. One of that benchmark is an inclusive government and restoring constitutional order in terms of the election. Yes, a temporary settlement was required because we needed to then put the cornerstone for a permanent settlement. However, this temporary settlement was not set up the way it was planned in the peace talks, because in the peace talks it was planned that everything will be transferred. We will move to a permanent settlement through negotiation, and everything will be in an order that people will trust it. But this did not happen, and now we know that the Taliban actually established a government which is, by any definition, not inclusive, including religious minorities, other ethnic groups, and women. Because it is the inclusion of women is not only a social and political imperative, but it's also an economical and a moral imperative. So therefore, we still have a chance to engage. And therefore, I requested, my plea in the beginning was to, as Muslim countries, we need to engage with the Taliban to make sure that these benchmarks are set. Inclusive government, every citizen to have the right to access resources, including education. You know that Afghanistan has transformed. We are not the same nation we were 20 years back. During my times in the negotiation, I tried to make the Taliban understand that it's not the same nation that they have been ruling in 1996 or 2001. People have access to information. Majority of people are now educated. They have explored international opportunities. So I think they will resist. And we see that today, despite extremely difficult, challenging security situation, we know that people protest. So therefore, I think now it's our turn to get meaningfully engaged. And the Taliban should listen to the world, to the Muslim communities, to their people, and start big steps, major steps for formation of a permanent settlement with inclusion of all segments of the society.
Thank you. I think truly we all wish the best for Afghanistan. I think it has gone through tremendous turmoil over the past 40 years. It's our hope, actually, and we are actually very enthusiastic to see the best for the people of Afghanistan. I'll open the session, inshallah, for question and answer. Anyone who wants to either put the question in the chat box or raise your hands for quick questions to both Madam Fauzia and also Dr. Harun. Okay, brother Rashid Zaman. Go ahead. You had your hands up.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Good one. Yeah.
Yeah, are you hearing me? Okay.
Yes.
So thank you very much for giving me chance to say something and to give an overview on the speech and deliberation of Brother Harun Khatibi. Okay, so my views, we have to accept the reality. Now Taliban has formed a government, and they should be very much wise and passionate. They should have knowledge enough and wisdom to face the challenges, such as economic challenges and women's rights, to ensure women rights and to manage the ethnic groups. At the same time, they must increase their technological development, and they should have a very smart plan for reconstruction and rehabilitation and reformation. And on the other hand, they should manage the challenges of the neighboring countries, and they should earn the support of the Muslim Ummah as well. At the same time, we should congratulate them. They have been successful to defeat the invaders. Now they should be more careful and more judicious to reconstruct their country and to keep their liberty for the long term. And now
Rashid, what is the question? Do you have a question?
This is my overview, and my question, actually, brother Harun Khatibi, how far the Taliban government are able to face the challenges, the present prevailing challenges. Okay, this is my question.
Okay, Dr. Harun, please.
Thank you very much, Brother Rashid Zaman. What I mean in our religious things also, there is something called tawakkul and something called tawakkul. These two different things. Tawakkul is something you must take all the measures to rebuild the country, to serve the people and everything. You take the measures, then after that you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for helping you. But one is tawakkul. Tawakkul is to just not to think about the improvement of the situation. I think only security, which is different from the past, that is not enough for the people of Afghanistan. And I mentioned the concern of Afghan people about other issues, economical things, about their rights and about education and all those things. Taliban has to take the measures on those other fields. Think what the people, they must put themselves in a position. We have got a thing, say, you put yourself in the shoe of your opponent. See what they think. From their angle, you must see what what is important. So Taliban, they must leave tawakkul, just ignore the measures, but they must take all the measures to improve and develop and bring change in the country, in the life of the people. I think now people, they are selling their household things to put a plate of food on their table. it's not a good, a healthy situation. So that's why I think Taliban, they can have the time, but they must be important. One is the delay on everything, so that would make it more difficult for the people. It puts the people in uncertainty position. So I think that position, that situation, uncertainty is very difficult for the people and for the government also. Joseph, thank you very much.
One question to Madam Fauzia, Madam Fauzia. In the U.S. Congress and the U.S. media, for example, there is this statement, a criticism of the U.S. government that they have spent $2 trillion over a period of 20 years in Afghanistan. But when you look at the numbers, it doesn't translate into development, improvement of the Afghan nation. As I mentioned earlier, trade deficit is 30% of the GDP. 80% of its funds or budget comes from foreign aid. And then we have a serious humanitarian crisis. What happened along the way, 20 years, Madam Fauzia? Why is this aid not translated into significant political economic development for the better of the people in Afghanistan?
I have a similar question, moderator. Can I go? Yeah, okay. Madam Fauzia, thank you very much for your participation in this discussion. It is very wonderful to have you on this discussion, because we would like to hear the real opinion and observation on the ground. But there is an opinion saying that for the past 20 years that there was a huge investment on the ground. But there is nothing much change on the ground in terms of the development that benefits people of Afghanistan. And can we expect a similar kind of change to Taliban to have an inclusive government and the right for the women, because they've just been in power just a few months. You have 20 years of time, but there is a little change on the ground. What is your take on this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Fauzia, please.
If I may also tackle a bit of the question from the previous participant who said, the Taliban are one reality and they have defeated. Taliban are the reality, and let's face the reality, they have defeated the superpower. The reality is that the Taliban, that the Americans would have left if Taliban or us Afghans want it, or we do not want it. They did not leave, they did not come to Afghanistan with our permission, and they did not leave Afghanistan with our permission. They wanted to leave, and they wanted to have some sort of agreement, and that's why they signed the Doha agreement with the Taliban. I have heard this many times from the American diplomat that we came without any permission and we are leaving without any permission. The Americans left because they were under enormous pressure by their own public, and we know that. We know that. On the question of 20 years of investment, blood and treasure, and we see the result, and the questions were similar. Things have changed, I must say. Economic progress, institutions were built, a constitution which respects equality and right for everyone, but yet it's an Islamic constitution. Institutions were built, 11 million children into school, 40% were girls. Big projects, infrastructure were implemented. Of course, nowadays Afghanistan is nothing to compare with Afghanistan of 2001. In Afghanistan of 2001, Kabul was a ruined city, let alone the provinces. That being said, just to be fair, it's true that that expectations were enormously high, and the people expectations in terms of a better Afghanistan, sustainable economic progress, job opportunities, strong institutions, they were not met. And partly because, once again, the Americans actually made certain mistakes by interfering into choosing who the leader of Afghanistan should be. the same president who actually flee Afghanistan with millions of dollars were brought to power not through election. He was never elected. In 2014, he got only 32% of the vote. In 2018, the same. But he was brought to power by a political, consensus and with mediation from the United States. So we are very grateful for international communities, humanitarian support, development projects, institution development. But people of Afghanistan are not happy with the fact that, in fact, they try to choose our leaders first. Secondly, they try to take the war to the villages of Afghanistan instead of looking at the root cause of the military extremism and see where the root cause of the military extremism comes from. They actually focused on spend millions of dollars on fighting on the ground in the villages of Afghanistan, which as a result, a lot of people actually were killed. And so these were the mistakes that eventually people actually turned their face from international community and also from the government. Corruption was the other phenomenon that people were fed up, and from top to down, previous politicians, mostly they were corrupt, and the governments were just using corruption as a slogan for their campaigns, not doing anything strongly about it. So, and I think the regional countries, I must say, also have continuously, until now, used Afghanistan as a battleground for their proxy confrontation. So therefore, I think many reasons resulted to where we are, but I don't agree with the fact that Taliban have just come to power. Why should we hold them accountable for what they're doing? No, it's not the reason. Will you accept this as a Muslim country, as a Muslim nation in your own country, when 55% of your population are deprived of their basic rights, of education, of work? We should not accept double standard for other Muslim brothers and sisters. So why we think there is always time for women to be part of a government, and for Taliban, they can do whatever they want to do. No, I think we have to hold them accountable from day one on what they do. The country is in a terrified situation, and only as an Afghan, I know what my people are going through. I know, as a woman who have been part of progress of their nation, invested my blood, not only my energy, in that country. I know what it means to start my day with a fear and anxiety that, how the day will go. Why do the Taliban think that they can rule the country without one main wing of that country being in full functionality? So therefore, I think I'm not expecting huge now from Taliban, and that's why I was engaged with them for 4 years, to make sure to influence their politics, to make sure to demonstrate a different Afghanistan, an Afghanistan where its men and women can work together with a moderate way of Islamic principles. But unfortunately, the Taliban said that there is no problem for them to be for women to be minister, even up to prime minister. I remember exactly what they said. Ministers, government officials, judges, they can work in public life. The only thing they cannot be is the head of an Islamic state, as per their definition. But now I know that they are doing it contrary to what they said. And so therefore they have to be held accountable, not because the West and the US Congress wants them, but because the people of Afghanistan want them, because my religion came to me 1,400 years back, tell me that the Prophet ﷺ wife was a successful businesswoman.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you for the spirited answer, Madam Fauzia. I would ask Brother Jason Leong, he put up the hands first. Brother Jason Leong, for a short question or short comment, please. Thank you. There's, I think,
just
4 people waiting. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, moderator. Just a short comment and a question. There has been a lot of talk about being inclusive and the requirement of inclusiveness. The fact is that many of us also forget that even our very own neighbor like Singapore, when we became independent, they took many years before they even appointed the first female minister into the Singapore cabinet. It was only in 1991 that they appointed it And in 2009, they appointed the first real female minister. So let's not be too hang up about that, about being inclusive in terms of representation in the government in Afghanistan. The reality in Afghanistan, much of it has revolved around the politics, geopolitics of China. So I just want to ask, wouldn't the panelists agree with me that China's stance towards Afghanistan would be something that they will have to tread very cautiously? Because China has taken that rhetoric and whacked the USA for being such a big failure in Afghanistan. Now, it is also very difficult now for them to be caught in the same situation where they themselves will be seen as failing to help Afghanistan if they intervene and interfere too much in Afghanistan. Because after so many years of condemning the US and talking about terrorism, China also will find it very difficult to suddenly convince the own population that Afghanistan now is suddenly, or the Taliban now is suddenly a reliable partner. Therefore, we should go in immediately. So wouldn't you think that China will have that kind of restraint and constraint? So comparing China and Malaysia, wouldn't Malaysia as a smaller country will have less of such geopolitical constraints and restraint, and we can engage more and do better in Afghanistan?
Jason, this question is for whom?
The question for Dr. Harun.
Madam Fauzia? Hello?
Yeah, for Dr. Harun. Oh.
Madam Fauzia? Yeah.
Actually, I didn't get the question. The voice was not clear.
How much of a role do you think China will be playing in Afghanistan, really in the new reality in Afghanistan?
Okay. China as a neighboring country of Afghanistan, I think they can play through their One Belt, One Road project. They can play lots of roles in the region, actually. They started that CPEC project in Pakistan, and they want to extend the same thing from Afghanistan, on the northern part of Afghanistan, and join that same project extended through Afghanistan to Iran. I think that would be economically, they can play a good, a better role. It would be for Afghanistan a good opportunity. But on the other hand, of course, in China, when we deal with China as a Muslim country and the new Afghan government, we must be also cautious about our Muslim brothers in Xinjiang, Uyghur Muslims, those who are under the thing. Unfortunately, Taliban, just before taking over the country, they sent a delegation to China, and they told the agreement was that we do not interfere in our internal affairs. So that was a clear green light to China that they can do whatever they can do with the Uyghur Muslims. But I believe if we could leave these things on we can just concentrate on the economical projects between the two countries. Both countries, in fact, the region would benefit from that, and that would be the Chinese role in the region. Thank you very much.
Do you have some comments on that? Madam Fauzia? Oh, this, okay. Okay, we will have a quick, because we have only 4 minutes more. Can we have a quick question by Madam Lilian Fan and Fatullah? Ustaz Fatullah Wilmot, please. Lilian first.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I just had a very quick question, and that is to Madam Fauzia. Actually, in your capacity, Madam Fauzia, as a peace negotiator, I think it would be really important for the audience today to also understand, what the terms of the negotiation was in the Doha Treaty, and what still is relevant to actually be taken into any next stage of negotiation. Because I think that one of the things that's been debated here today at this conference has been, recognition on not to recognize the Taliban, what kind of legitimacy. But I think that many of us are actually forgetting that there was negotiation with the Taliban already, led by Afghans, facilitated by Qatar. And it's very important for us to reflect on what is still relevant to be brought up, and what should the international community and the regional governments, the Muslim countries who want to support this, what should we be supporting, or what would be helpful to support when it comes to ensuring that there is actually a much more participative, consultative and inclusive process of political reconciliation in Afghanistan by Afghans. So we would really like to hear your views on that, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. Fauzia, please.
So
you have to unmute.
Are you referring, Madam Lian? Are you referring to? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Lillian. Are you referring to, because there were two processes in Qatar, Doha, the kind of peace process. One was the American agreement with the Taliban, which they signed on the 29th of February last year, 2020. And it was 4 elements interconnected to each other, for Taliban to start inter-Afghan negotiation for a political settlement, de-link or detach themselves from other military extremist groups that operate in the region, and also then the Americans' withdrawal and release of prisoners. But we know that the Americans actually announced their withdrawal without those conditions being met. And I refer to my statement in the beginning that those were the situation that actually put the negotiation in a miserable situation, because if some of those steps were avoided, we probably had a different outcome. So, for instance, if the international community could put more pressure on political stage to and use their leverage in the region and also on the Taliban and on the Afghan government to listen to each other and to have compromises and flexibility, I think the outcome would have been different. So that is an agreement that actually the Americans violated themselves, because they said with conditions-based withdrawal, but they withdraw without any proper responsible measures put in place. And we remember the same day that unfortunately Americans withdraw from Bagram Air Base, a lot of our security forces actually left the country, flee to Tajikistan. So that indicate the interdependency and the moral dependency of our forces, that they were not trained to operate sustainability and as an independent troop. However, our talks with Taliban, which was the intra-Afghan negotiations, we have begun it with a good faith. And as a woman, along with my other 3 sisters, we were in the negotiation representing a different Afghanistan. And during the negotiation, from a personal capacity, I have always been respected by Taliban. So my hope was that that the Taliban, when they come to some sort of agreement, they will be able to respect, and probably their perspective towards women have changed. So we have had some substantive discussions on the future government. Most of the things were not on the media, but we have had 1 year of discussion, and some of them actually very substantive issues. Not easy, because the peace talks in Afghanistan is probably one of the peace talks in the world where rights were discussed and were supposed to be agreed upon. So there were some issues of substance. For instance, what should the political government structure should look like? Should it be a parliamentary system, a strong presidential system, on an Islamic government, or what the Taliban have, emirate? They have, by the way, they have never actually said that they will have support an establishment of an emirate again. They were always referring to Islamic government, which for us, Islamic government could be defined in many ways. It could be defined in republic way, it could be defined in a parliamentary system. The form of the government could be then redefined or defined later on. But now we know that they have actually established an Islamic emirate. So I think as a result of the announcement of withdrawal, the peace talks really stalled. And if I was Taliban, I would do the same. I would expedite in the military field and win the war. And that's what they did. If only a year of time was given to the negotiation, I think the situation would have been different. Now, I think, as I said before, there is I know that the time is running, there is an interim or caretaker government. So that means we still have a chance to work with Taliban and with other political groups in Afghanistan, so that and including women, because Taliban are one reality. The other reality of Afghanistan are women. The other reality of Afghanistan are political groups. They have to work together. And I think the role of Indonesia and Malaysia, because I think Malaysia, some of your scholars actually helped us in drafting our first constitution, providing technical support. So you could be a good role model in terms of, an Islamic, but yet a democratic country.
Ajay, back to you. Ajay, back to you. Yeah, I think he lost the connection.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Fadullah.
Okay, I was really impressed with Fauzia's response. I would just like to ask two things. Number one, do you think that the fact that the Americans were working with the warlords, they were bombing civilians, this was the main reason the Taliban got support in the rural areas? It wasn't that people really liked the Taliban, it was that they were getting hurt by the invading forces. Second question is, to follow up what Lillian said, do you think that, because when I was there in Afghanistan, I saw some ulama from Indonesia and Malaysia were there trying to talk to ulama within Afghanistan at the time to give them some sort of more, I don't like these terms, moderate, more open, tolerant sort of understanding of Islam. Do you think there is any role for countries like Indonesia and Malaysia today in sort of helping the Taliban to understand the role of Islam in the modern nation state is different to what they understand it? Thank you.
Okay, Fauzia, 1 minute, yeah? We are past time. Just a minute, a quick response in 100 words. Thank you. Okay.
No, thank you. That's a $1 million question, actually. I agree. People were left with bad options, bad and worse. People had to choose between bad and worse, and there was no good option, unfortunately. And that's why people had no options. In terms of the Indonesia and Malaysia, I think you can play a critically important role, because, as I said in the beginning, you can work with the Taliban and with other groups in Afghanistan, because most of the Taliban, I actually met them. I was in Kabul for 3 weeks. I was in negotiation for 3 years. I met a lot of Taliban, including their fighters. And a lot of them are actually not educated. They don't have an education of Islamic education or secular education. And that is the challenge. Because if somebody just heard traditionally that, behaving with women to oppress her is an Islamic right, he will continue to do that without understanding a true Islam, without understanding, what the religion taught to him. So therefore, I think we all have a role, especially Indonesia and Malaysia, not only in terms of trying to introduce a more tolerance and more moderate Islam, but also in terms of working with them, because Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country. You are a Muslim country, Malaysia. You can work with them as a role model. I think your systems could be used as a role model for us. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Farid, I've been asked to get Brother Farid. Do you want to comment? You have 30 seconds. Silakan. Brother Farid, yes, we have passed the time. Silakan. Please unmute.
Wait a minute. Could you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I very appreciate you, all of the guests, and also for you. It is a very good and important conference about the Afghanistan backward country. Two questions. My short question refer to the Miss Madam Fawzia and one to Brother Khatibi. Madam Fawzia, she said the Taliban government is exclusive government. It's not inclusive government, because all of the tribes, they don't say their image in the mirror of this government, but one tribe or a special tribe, they have powerful in the Afghanistan by the name of Taliban. I said the government of Taliban, it is exclusive. It's not exclusive, but it is inclusive government, because there are many peoples and leaders from different tribes. We know the Tajik people in that government, in the government of Taliban. As we know, the Minister of Economic, many ministers, they belong to the Tajik, also belong to the Uzbek, belong to the many people. I think this idea is that she said this is not inclusive. It's not good. Also, if we compare between the government of Taliban and the before government, the democratic government, the last government also was exclusive. As you know, there are the government was on the hand of many warlord people. Some warlord people, they have the powerful in the last government. They have influence in impact on the government. Many people and many young people from different parts of Afghanistan, they were deprived from their rights. You know, in the last governments, from the Helmand province, from the Kandahar province, from many different provinces of Afghanistan, there weren't any people to have political share with that governments. How Sister Fawzia, she said the government of Taliban, it is exclusive, it is not inclusive. I don't accept this one. Also, she said about the minority rights. As you know, the Taliban, they said, we respected, we are going to enforcement, we are going to apply the minority rights. But the Taliban said, if you give us 20 months time, you have given 20 years time for the last corrupted government, for the Ghani and Karzai government. You just give us just 20 months time, you can say, we are going to have commitment with you. The Taliban call all of the governments on the world, just please give us 20 months. 20 months, and after that you say this is the first question. The second question, she said about the women rights, about the prohibition of women rights. Sister Fawzia, as I know, the Taliban is not this Taliban, this era Taliban. It's not like the 20 years ago Taliban. This Taliban is very intellectualist Taliban. This Taliban is very educated. You said the Taliban is not educated. It is wrong. The Taliban is very educated. They have very best doctors. They have very best engineers. I was the student in Kabul University. Right now, I'm teacher at Kabul University. In that time, when I was a student, all of the best students from every faculty belong to the Taliban. They graduated, they joined the Taliban. Now, the Taliban has very best doctors, engineers, technological, very best, strong, knowledgeable people. How you said the Taliban doesn't have they doesn't have religion knowledge? I think it's not good. It is not a good idea.
Brother Farid, I think we've run out of time. We take your question ataupun your statement.
I'm sorry.
Question.
One question is belong to the brother, refer to brother Khatibi. I'm sorry.
Maybe you can give a statement. Yeah. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we will take it as your statement.
Okay.
Without question, or Madam Fauzia, I think it's okay. Yeah? You have stated, and Madam Fauzia have stated the position. Dr. Harun has stated.
Absolutely, it's his view. It's not a question. It's his view, and his remarks are what I said. So it's not a question.
Okay. So I think we'll close. Inshallah, we can continue the debate later. Part 2, 2.0. Yeah. Inshallah, we applaud. As closing, I think we applaud the tenacity and courage of the Afghan people to press for freedom and self-determination. Is our dua, our fervent hope that this opportunity can be translated into a prosperous, inclusive, and peaceful Afghanistan, inshallah, for all of us. And we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to God Almighty, to give the Afghan people the best for the future. And we thank the learned panelists, Dr. Muhammad Harun Khatibi, Chairman of the Humanitarian Assistance Society, and Madam Fauzia Kufi. I think we were all very happy to have you here because we see how the Parliament, our Malaysian Parliament debates. So we were wondering how you handle the Afghan Parliament as Deputy Speaker, but we couldn't go to that topic. But I think the panelists, the conference today had a lot of benefit from the exchange and the discourse, and we better understand the issue. Our thanks and also congratulations to Global Peace Malaysia for hosting this very timely conference. Our thanks to the Honourable Foreign Minister who has stayed until now in the conference, and also Dato' Azam, and all the organizers. May Allah bless all of us and see this as part of our ibadah to help not only the ummah but to help mankind towards progress and prosperity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jamaluddin, and as well as Dr. Harun Khatibi and Madam Fauzia Kufi for that, and I can say that an eye-opening session for this evening. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be glad to know that today's conference does not stop here. 20 years ago, the humanitarian aid mission led by GPM as an NGO representative from Malaysia happened to rebuild Afghanistan through a fund from the Malaysian. Back then, GPM opened a secretariat that served for almost 2 years in Afghanistan. Consequently, the Surya School, Orphanage Home, Women's Center, Bread Factory, and many more has been established by GPM. And to know how we can be a helping hand to our next session, we'll bring the topic Rebuilding Afghanistan, Role of Friendly Countries. Will be moderated by GPM's own Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Ahmad Fahmi Muhammad Samsudin, with our two esteemed guest speaker, which is His Excellency Fahad bin Muhammad Kafur, the Ambassador of the State of Qatar. And also the second panel for this evening is Her Excellency Ms. Amna Baloch, the High Commissioner of Pakistan. A brief introduction on our moderator for this session, Mr. Ahmad Fahmi bin Ahmad Samsudin. He's also the Vice President of ABIM, as well as the EXCO for Regional Islamic Da'wah Council of Southeast Asia and the Pacific, RICEP. He was recently appointed as the members of Consultative Council on Foreign Policy by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Malaysia. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Ahmad Fahmi Samsudin to moderate this session.